Akwaba, welcome back. Wezo on the AM show. Now, this morning, as intimated earlier, we're talking Down Syndrome Day 2021. It's Sunday, but today we're giving the spotlight to those who suffer Down syndrome, their families. We're telling the stories of children living with Down syndrome. What should we know? It's a live conversation with parents whose children have Down syndrome to inspire others with such conditions not to give up. And Mama Vio Usu-Abuaji will be engaging some of these parents and the sufferers as well live on the AM show. Mama V, if you can hear me, and she is right at our forecourt, take it over from here.
Okay, Ben, thank you very much. And I want to welcome our viewers to our conversation on Down syndrome. I've got parents with children with Down syndrome. We'll try and make a fine distinction between Down syndrome and autism. That's one of the early things I learned to engage in Debbie yesterday. Let me welcome you to this conversation. Debbie and Agnes.
Thank you.
Okay. So you have Toda here. We will introduce Toda to the show in a little bit, but how old is she?
She's 10.
Okay. And she's your second child?
Yes, she is.
Okay. We will talk about the experiences in a bit. But maybe, Debbie, we should start by making the distinction first of all. What's the difference between autism and Down syndrome?
So, Down syndrome is a chromosomal abnormality, while autism is a neurological condition. So the two are definitely not the same. If someone has autism and you don't know, you don't have a trained eye to see the peculiar mannerisms, you will not even see that there is something wrong. But with Down syndrome, just the physical appearance, you would see the distinction from other people. So children with Down syndrome tend to, so let's go, I said chromosomal. Mama V, you have 46 chromosomes, 23 from your mother's egg and 23 from your father's sperm, making 23. Children like ours have 47. And the 47 is instead of having a pair of the 21st chromosome, they have 3 copies of the 21st chromosome. And it is that extra copy that gives the physical, developmental, and intellectual differences we see in persons with Down syndrome.
Okay, but we can also have a child with Down syndrome and autism as well.
Yes, there has been cases where there has been dual diagnosis in children with Down syndrome. Some of them also, I wouldn't say develop, but are diagnosed with autism along the line. There are a few children who have been diagnosed with autism as well.
Okay. And I want us to now begin the experiences. So we will be, I'm coming to you, Agnes, so that you can share how you first discovered that Toda was a special needs child. At what points? Was it in the pregnancy when you gave birth?
It's when I gave birth. The first day I gave birth to her, the doctor examined her and he told me that he suspects that my daughter has Down syndrome. But because he was a gynae, he was going to ask the pediatrician to also examine her and confirm that really she has Down syndrome.
You must be one of the fortunate ones, because a fresh baby doctor was able to tell that something may be wrong somewhere.
Yes, I would say I was very fortunate, because with the parents that we have, a lot of them, they don't know first like I did. So I was fortunate.
But how did you take the news?
I didn't know what Down syndrome is then. Even though I have seen children who I realized look like her. So I started asking every nurse that came around, what is Down syndrome? What is Down syndrome? So they explained that it's an extra chromosome, just like Debbie has said. So that is how I got to know what Down syndrome really is. But for me, it was a no, it cannot be me.
Debbie, let me ask about your experience. At what point did you realize that your child had Down syndrome?
I was equally I got a postnatal diagnosis. When I gave birth, I mean, everything was normal. Pregnancy, the birth process, everything was normal. But then the hospital I gave birth at, they told me that it is mandatory that every child born there is examined by the pediatrician specialist before they are discharged. And so I gave birth Friday evening, and I was told the pediatrician doesn't work on Saturdays, but he has been called in. And when he came, he was examining my baby and was dropping words to the nurses like, this is a floppy baby, this is what we mean by hypotonia, and things like that. And then when I asked, is everything okay? He said, okay enough for you to go home. So fortunately for us, I love reading. So as soon as we got home Saturday evening, I started Googling hypotonia, floppy babies. And everything that came up was like my baby. But fortunately, we had neonatal jaundice on the 3rd or 4th day. So we went back to the hospital and I asked, Doc, I heard you dropping these words. I read, and this is what it shows. And he said, yes, but I see the gap between your first child and this child. There wasn't anything threatening his life. So I didn't want to take away the joy of childbirth from you right away.
Okay.
So yes, your child, if you put a gun to my head, I'll tell you your child has Down syndrome. But for your peace of mind, if you want us to do a test and confirm the type of Down syndrome, we can do that. And it took us about 3 months to find a lab that was willing to take the sample and transport out of Ghana for the confirmation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what you're telling us right now is that Down syndrome is not just Down syndrome. You need to determine the type of Down syndrome.
Well, Down syndrome, yeah, there are 3 types.
Well, what's the importance of knowing as a parent the type of Down syndrome that your child has?
I think the importance of knowing is because if your child has what my child has, non-disjunction, it means it's random, you know, and it is the largest population of people who have Down syndrome is non-disjunction. But if you have the translocation, it means that you, the parent, or somewhere along your line, there is a carrier. You are a carrier.
Okay. Okay.
So you carry the gene and then it manifested in your child. However, if you have mosaic, it means that the 3 copies of the 21st chromosome are not on every cell in the body. They are on some cells. So the manifestation is not as somebody who has translocation or non-disjunction. Some of the people with mosaic, they look like you and I, but they may have intellectual disabilities. Like cognitively, you can see that they are delayed. So that is the difference. There are 3 types.
So you don't have anybody in your family, no record.
As far as I know, there isn't anybody. And like I said, my son's diagnosis is non-disjunction. So it's one of the random occurrences that you cannot explain.
Okay, let me ask Agnes, was there traits of it in your family?
No trait at all.
So at this point, were you blaming yourself? Were you asking, what did you do wrong?
I wasn't blaming myself, but I didn't understand why my daughter should have Down syndrome. I also had her after 18 years of between the first and her. So, and I prayed. I prayed because I had married a man who would not give me peace until I give him a baby. So I resorted to prayer and I was praying. And I found myself pregnant at 46. So it was an act of God. So God, why do you give me a baby without any facility treatment and she has Down syndrome? So I will not accept it. So close to 2 years I was living in denial. I lived in denial. Even though I was reading and I was trying to find out what Down syndrome is, no, I did not accept it.
At what point did you come to terms with, okay, this is my child, she has Down syndrome, and I have to deal with it?
Yes, a reverend minister in our church came to visit, and then I told her that they said my daughter has Down syndrome, but for me, minus me, I'm praying so God will change her. And she said yes. God can choose to change her situation, but what if God says no? This is the daughter I'm giving you. Take care. What will you do? So then it dawned on me that yes, even though I'm praying, God can say no. This is the child I'm giving you. So what will I do? So then I said that yes, then I'll have to accept her, try and read to know how to help myself and also help her so that she can grow up very well.
Okay. And how has it been? She's 10 years already, so how has growing up, taking care of her, how would you sum it up?
It's not an easy journey bringing up a child with Down syndrome, because every milestone delays. So you need to have a lot of patience, a lot of love and care for her, taking her to see the doctor at any. You see, a typical child can have a cold and you can treat it home, but not with a child with Down syndrome. You have to be extra careful with everything that you do with her so that she can grow up well.
Yeah. Debbie, one of the early things you said to me when we were having conversations before this final conversation is the fact that there are common traits or something that is common running through parents, mothers with Down syndrome. I want you to share some of it with us because you also have a support group.
Yeah. Thank you, Mama V. From my experience, my personal experience, I became a single parent as a result of my child's diagnosis. And interacting with, I have been very out there with my son and the diagnosis because I want to put a face to Down syndrome. There are perceptions that people have in society about children like ours, and I want to debunk those perceptions, and so I put a face, my son, everything there. But then the 7 or almost 8 years I have had my son, interaction with other parents, and what the common trend you see is that most of the mothers became single parents as a result of their child's diagnosis. And then you ask yourself, I did not determine the quantity of sperm to fertilize the egg I had. So why should I be punished for something I had no hand in? But these are some of the misconceptions about disabilities in our society. And so nobody wants to associate with a child with disabilities. And so, oh, minus me, like I said, or there's nothing like this in my family. And like we are saying, if you check my family as well, I think so far, or in recent history, I am the one who has a child with Down syndrome in my family, as far as we know. So how I cannot also say that there is nothing like that in my family and abandon the child. You understand me? So mothers without any option are left alone to handle these children with complicated health needs, as well as complicated educational needs. And they require a cohort of specialists and therapists to help them meet milestones and develop equally like their typical peers. So you ask yourself, and that is why I wouldn't want to keep quiet, because I need society to understand that as Debbie, I did not have a hand in determining that I have a child with Down syndrome. I have an older daughter who is typical, she's perfect in every way. That does not mean that my son is not perfect. He is perfect in his own 47 chromosome way.
That's right.
Do you understand me? So this is the common trend that we see amongst the parents, that man says it is not in my family, so they walk away.
Agnes, was that your story too?
Yes. My husband and I got divorced because of Toda's condition. He blamed me for her condition, said it's my fault, so I should take care.
How is that your fault?
I don't know.
Ignorance.
Ignorance, yes, ignorance.
But you know, I guess we're looking back and talking about it now because you've moved on.
Yes.
But I'm not sure it was that simple at the time, because you know, here you are. This is a fresh child with Down syndrome, and you're now left alone to deal with it.
Yes, it was a difficult situation, and I had to battle it. Finally, I was faced with divorce, and the fact that I was going to get divorced, it was difficult. It took me 2 years to finally decide that divorce would be the best option. So then I went in for a divorce.
I read in the Finder newspaper, there's somebody who's also written, a parent who's also shared her story, where she says she felt like dumping her child. Debbie, you are quite strong, but have you always been like this? Have you always been like this?
You see how we are giggling?
We were talking before
we went live, we were talking about depression. Let me tell you, when I had my son, my daughter was in secondary school.
Michelle?
Yes, you know her.
Yes, because I read your blog. The International Women's Day message today, that was lovely.
Yes,
yeah.
Michelle was in secondary school, and to be honest, it got to the point that I considered double suicide for myself and my son. Yes. And the only thing that kept me was I was thinking, how would Michelle go through her entire life with the burden of my mother killed herself and my brother? And that was what kept me, and I reached out for help, because I wrote about that as well, that a clinical psychologist who my son's pediatrician connected me to help me get out of that dark moment. I wrote a thank you note to her that she actually brought me from the brink of whatever, I don't know what that was. And it's because I have always been open about it. I was talking to my son's pediatrician one day, and then he asked me, where are you? And I said, I am at work. And he said, come to the clinic now. And I said, but Dr. Danso, you don't work on this day. He said, yes, come now. I am in the consulting room. And when I went, he was not there. The clinical psychologist was sitting there. And when I saw her and she introduced herself, I just broke down and started crying. And it has, there are things you want to share with the person you created this person with. And yet, because they have decided I don't care, you have to internalize everything. And that is a lot.
Yeah.
That is a lot, because my son has cold, and you have to sleep in the hospital, be on admission for a day or 2 or 3 days, because if it's not managed properly, he could develop pneumonia. Just recently, I was telling Agi, I thought my son had COVID, because overnight, this boy just transitioned, he couldn't breathe properly and everything. And on top of everything we have, he's diagnosed to be having asthma. So
wow.
It is a lot. It is a lot emotionally, it is a lot physically, it is a lot financially. And yet, this child is living, they are breathing, they are, so you cannot ignore their needs. So, Mama V, I'm sorry, but I have never been that strong. It's just that I have been very vocal about it. Writing about it also helps me, because it is an outlet to kind of pour some of the things out.
Yeah.
Because clearly, I cannot share that with his father. He's just not interested. I cannot also share that it's not everybody who can relate and understand that this thing you are saying is you are not hyping it, you are not overreacting, but I have a colleague who we went to visit, and my son was playing about the house, was with neighbors playing ball. And then when we were getting ready to go, Michelle went to bathe for him. When she came back, she said, Mom, Kofi is running a temperature. And I said, oh, just feed him and then we can go back home. When we were leaving my friend's house, I had my car's horn on, because clearly it was an emergency now. We didn't go back home. We went from my friend's house to the hospital. And that friend keeps on saying, I am afraid of this boy. I don't want to see him. Because
one moment he's happy.
He's happy, he's well, okay. And then before you can say it is an emergency and you have to quickly rush, And the thing is also their pain threshold is very high. So by the time you realize something is happening, it is an emergency.
I see Agnes agreeing with you. So can I ask how strong you are? What kind of support you have? How do you channel all those frustrations?
I cry.
She's tearing.
Should I break the protocols and hug you? Yeah. Sorry.
Aggie.
You cry.
Yes, I cry.
Which is healthy.
I cry. I remember after divorce, I told myself that I'll forgive him. But I realized that I had not forgiven him. Why do you have to do this to me? So then, a friend of mine told me, Aggie, you need help. You need somebody to talk to. So then he connected me to a pastor who also does counseling. So we did a series of meetings and sessions for about 3 months. And then finally, I was able to forgive him, because I do not understand why you have to pressurize me to have a child. And then after having the baby, you tell me the baby has Down syndrome and it is from my family, it is my fault, and blah, blah, blah. So it was difficult. We are not as strong as we may seem to be. When we started, I was asking them, how many times do we get depressed in a year?
But at least you have each other.
Oh,
yes, we do.
Yes.
We do. And just as Debbie is saying, she couldn't stand Michelle, the fact that Michelle would think that my mother and my brother died through suicide. My son will also tell me, Mom, you have to be strong for Toda. You don't have to be crying every day. Stay strong. She needs you strong.
How old is he?
He is 28. He's 28, and then he will be edging me on. He has been a source of support. Start Debbie when I met her. She's been so good to me. So it's Kobe. It's Kobe, and thanks to Kobe, we are, and he is also very interested in what happens to Toda. And it gives me a lot of encouragement and support.
Nice. Big brother and big sister.
Yes.
You know, I always say that somehow God doesn't give you something that you can't handle. Or there's always something that comes through for you.
My sister will always say that. Mambo neno benye mape matro maha. Maha neno manye matro. Start echo manye matro Lord tro manye tro. Yeah, she always tells me that God will not give me a burden I cannot carry.
Yeah.
So because God knows that I can take good care of Toda, He gave it to me.
Yeah.
So then I should.
Absolutely. I
But
probably would have done a very
you
poor
ask
job.
what God is thinking, because
Yes.
it is like,
Yes.
oh man, this is not something for just one person to carry. It's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot.
So tell me about the support group that you have. This is a group of women. Do you have men involved?
Yes, we have a few men, and Aggie can talk to that.
Who do you talk?
Okay, she said that she's still tearing. Well, these are, the commonality we have is that we all have children with Down syndrome. And like I said, you have sister-logs, we have sister-logs, and that connected us.
All of you? Oh, no.
No, not all the group, but
Okay.
I mean myself, Aggie, and you.
Okay.
And that sort of was an icebreaker, that when we met you this morning, how come we all have something like this? Do you understand
Yeah.
me? And so the icebreaker for us as a group is that we all have children with Down syndrome, and we all want the best for these children. They are here, and they will continue to be here. And so what we do is that we share experiences. So somebody used a certain strategy to get their child potty trained. We share it on the page, and people continue to, okay, let me do that. Somebody is, for instance, Agnes and I are now sharing how to get, Toda to be able to learn her phonics, how to learn to read, because like I said, I started very early because I just told myself, I love challenges. And when the fact that, okay, Debbie, there's nobody else, this is you. It's just you. And fortunately for me, the diagnosis came with the bare facts, where my pediatrician told me, Debbie, if you want your child to be a living thing, he would be a living thing. But if you want him to be a contributing factor in society, he can be. And it all depends on the effort you put him and the resources you put into him. And once he told me that, I sat down, I cried at the enormity of resources I need to get him from here to there. But then I told myself, don't look at there, let there guide you and take it at one day at a time. And that's how I put in the effort. And you know, I'm happy to say I love reading. My son loves reading. And you'll be there, he'll bring a book and say, Mommy, read. Or he'll be reading and ask you, when he looks at you, it means he can't pronounce that word.
We saw that this morning when we shared the clip of Kofi reading.
Yeah. He will look at you, it means he will say what? Sometimes he wouldn't even say, he will look at you like, come on, help me. And you know, we use the sounds of the letters to do it. But I wouldn't say that it's all me. I got helpers along the way. When I needed school for Kofi, every school I knocked on in Ghana at the time would tell me, oh, we don't have resources to take care of him. And he was just a child who needed to be cleaned, fed, and maybe babysat at that time.
So just keep an eye on him.
Just keep an eye on him, you know. And so I reached out to Down Syndrome International. I had to sign up with them as an individual caregiver. And then I told them my son will be 1 year next 2 months. I still do not have a school. If you don't help me get a school, at 1 year I would have to resign my job and focus on him because now I have to work full-time. So they referred me to a school, and this school takes children from 2 years. And I decided, I read everything on the website, but I still booked the appointment, and I went. And I told them, yes, he is 11 months old, but Monday, if you don't take Kofi, this is my situation. And I have an older daughter, I have a special needs child, I need to be working. So yes, let the specialist assess him. And with assessment, they realized they could take him. So Kofi was taken at 11 months. And since he has been in that school, they have taken children younger than 11 months. So if I hadn't knocked, maybe that door would have still been closed to many parents.
So Kofi has been in the same school?
Yes.
Okay.
He has been in the same school except this month. He didn't go to school this month, one, because of the COVID cases. And then, like I told you, we got an asthma diagnosis this month also, this year also. So I felt like, let me continue doing. He has got some solid foundation. Let me continue doing homeschooling. I am in between jobs now, so I am home. So let me do homeschooling. And then once the numbers calm down, things settle, he'll go back to the same school.
Agnes, tell us about Toda.
Toda has...
She's heard her name, so she's looking at me closely. She's wondering, what did I do to Auntie?
She has changed her school 3 times already because she couldn't fit in. But where she is now is good. We are still trying to get her do what she will have to do at her age. No, so we are still struggling with. Unlike Debbie, she did her. She started early. I did not. There are a lot of things that I have learned from her that I'm now applying. So we are still little by little. We'll get somewhere. I believe that I'll get somewhere. By Debbie, I'll get somewhere.
By God, by God.
No, she's challenging me. No, I thought that, I heard that there was no way Toda was going to read a question, understand and answer. So that was what I know. Until I met Debbie and I saw that Kofi was reading. I said, yes, then Toda can read. Then I should not believe that she cannot read a question and answer. I read about persons with Down syndrome achieving internationally, so why not? So we have delayed, but there was hope.
Okay, great. I like that. That's Vim. Is there national support, Debbie? What does the state do for you parents?
Well, Mama V, like I said, children like Kofi and Toda, they need specialist care. And the kind of support we have is the NHIS, and the NHIS doesn't cover most specialist care. So everything you do is out of pocket. Every hospital you go. And you see, as a parent, I have, since my son was born, he was born in a private hospital, and we have done private hospitals all throughout, because naturally I hate hospitals. I hate to see people suffering. And you know, when you go to I remember when Kofi was, I think, 8 months, I went to Kolebu for speech therapy because I read and we needed to start right away. But then every week I would have to go to Kolebu for 30 minutes of speech therapy. I live in Ashalibutri. So I'm sitting here, and you are going to sit in the queue. It will get to your son's time, you do 30 minutes, and then you go home. That's a lot of travel time and everything, you know. So I chose to go to the private hospital because at the time I could also afford it. But the thing is, the care these children need, nationally there's no support in terms of, for us to say that, you know, the National Health Insurance law says that every child, whether the mother or the father is on NHIS or not, should have free health care. But ask me whether that is the case. And the health care that my child needs before 5 is complicated. It's a cocktail of many things at the same time. You know, my son has gone through surgeries. He has, and it is all to improve his quality of life, but we have had to do it out of pocket. I know there is is it the MP's Common Fund or the District Assembly?
District Assembly. Yes,
where, you know, you have to apply and then they give you for fees or something. I went to make an inquiry, and the district I went to make an inquiry at, I was told they were given to people, disabled people who are older and can learn a trade or can sell something, you know.
So I asked, qualify.
How can I take care of him till he grows to be able to access that fund to start a trade or to do something? And he told me that is what it is. But fortunately, I think last year Agi applied, and it took about a year for the funds to come in for her.
Yes.
So
yeah, I applied for her education. Okay. I heard about it, so I went to the district assembly. Then I applied for her education, and after a year, they gave me money, some money for her fees. And this year, the man in charge called me. He said because of COVID, they are not in the office. They are not working. They are working from home. So when they open the office, he will ask me to bring her receipts again for this year. Okay. So I'm hoping that. So I'm appealing.
How long did it take?
it took 1 year. When I applied, it took us 1 year for them to.
Which assembly is this?
Tema District Assembly.
Okay. So Debbie, it looks like you have to go back to your assembly.
I may have to, but Mama V, a year for you to get.
I know.
a year, a whole year.
Yeah.
To wait for, you know, something.
I can understand. You sent me the hiring chain.
Yeah.
The hiring chain.
Yeah.
And it's an advocacy for persons with Down syndrome to be hired.
Yes.
Get employment.
Yes.
How important is that?
Very, very important, because you see, every human being, your quality of life is improved when you know that you are contributing something, whether in the home or society, or you have a certain routine that is fulfilling for you. Persons with Down syndrome, yes, they are delayed, but that doesn't mean that they are totally useless. They are not. They are not. And so the hiring chain is so important for us this year, and I'm so happy that Down Syndrome International and allies have come up with that video, because like I was telling you, I have been studying my son's interest right from the very beginning. So I exposed him to a lot of things, and I know people would say that costs money, but yes.
That doesn't cost money, that is expensive.
You know, that it does, but the thing is, I I don't want my son depending on me when I am 80 years old. I am cleaning his bum. I am, feeding him. No. So the thing is, once you identify the child's interest, somebody is baking, Kofi loves music and dancing, and for the last 3 years or so, he has been with a dance studio that he goes every Saturday. And, just seeing him with his peers, that connection that he has a life outside of home. He's the only child at home now. So school was giving him that interaction with his peers. Now school is not there. But that interaction on Saturdays, that 1 hour that he's with them, and he's doing everything. He has had a professionally directed performance twice at the National Theatre and at the School of Performing Arts. And I'm thinking that this is something that my child can actually do as a career because he loves it. And it will take him a long time to learn and become proficient at it. And that is why it's so important to start early.
Okay.
To start early,
Okay.
So hiring is important because it improves their quality of life. It gives them something to do outside of home. And I think we just need to disabuse our minds in Ghana that they can only learn vocation. Basket weaving, doormat weaving, and that is good. But there are other capabilities for these people, and we need to explore that. We need to give them the opportunity to develop it.
Yeah. Agnes, what do you see Toda doing the most? I mean, what does she like to do?
I realize she likes cooking, she likes to be in the kitchen, she likes music, and she likes dancing. I know most children with Down syndrome like music and dancing. So she also is enrolled in a music and dance school.
Okay.
And she's enjoying it so much. I'm hoping that it will be her career one day because she loves to do it.
Okay.
She loves to model too. She likes to model.
Oh, she's doing something. Are you modeling?
Yes.
So that's Toda right there. That's Agnes's little cutie right there, who's 10. She just had the things that she likes to do.
And she began doing them.
So what does she cook?
Anything. I'm in the kitchen and she wants to do everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
What are you going to cook?
Egg.
Okay.
Simple.
Perfect. So, in this is a beautiful conversation. I really would have loved other parents to also reach out, but I know there are people who are watching. Somebody has heard what you have said. It sounds beautiful when you've been through it for a period. For you, 10 years. For Debbie, 7 years. And so you've reached a point where you are almost comfortable because you know what to expect. The new things are not necessarily new, at least you can deal with it. But somebody is beginning from the very bottom. They see you and they see hope, but the work involved is not easy.
At all.
What would you say to them? How do they start? Yeah. How should they start?
I will say that they should start with acceptance. It is very important to accept that this is the child I have. And then jump from that hurdle to what can I do to help myself and help my baby. Because as long as we live in denial, there's nothing you can do to help yourself and then help your baby. So you accept. And there's a lot of literature on the internet. If you read, you can get yourself educated. And we are also here. We've gone through it. So anything you want to ask will be of help to you. Debbie will add.
Oh, okay. Are you open to people reaching out to you, for instance?
Oh yes, like I mentioned to you, I have had people reach out to me through my blog, and the thing is, I think as parents who have older children, we don't know it all. But the thing is, once we share our stories, once we share our journey, it encourages that young mother who has just had a diagnosis and they don't know what to do. I am currently mentoring a few mothers, and I tell them that, look, the emotion you are feeling is valid. where you are at now, the fear you are feeling, the anxiety, the uncertainty about the future, it is all valid. But don't focus so much on those ones. I think what worked for me was taking it one day at a time. Even some of the days, especially days that we are in the hospital, I take it 1 hour at a time, because if I know the doctor will come for a review at 12 o'clock, that is what I'm looking forward to. He comes at 12 o'clock, gives me what the prognosis is or what he's going to do next. I focus on that. So it is okay to be afraid. It is okay to be anxious, but don't get stuck, because that child is breathing, is growing. His needs are there. And you need to, at some point, wipe your tears and get your loins and get to work. It's as simple as that.
Great. When I was making my notes last night, something occurred to me and I wrote it down. I thought it would be the last thing that I would ask you. How has Toda changed you, your life, your career, and all?
Having Toda has taught me a lot of life lessons. Primarily, when we give birth to children and they develop, they attain milestones, we take them for granted. And we think it is normal that your child at a stage should hold a head, should sit, should crawl, should walk. But when you have a child with special needs, you realize that it is grace. It is the grace, it's not a luxury, it is a grace of God that your child attain all the milestones and the developmental milestones. She's taught me a lot about patience. You want to have her bath and you have to sing, dance, make all that will make her comfortable to bath, do what she wanted to do. And she has taught me a lot of patience and love. For children with special needs, you have to love more than the word love itself. You have to love them unconditionally and then give in all. A lot of time have to go into their development. Like I live in Tema, I have to take her to a dance school at the Spinters Road, and sometimes I'm tired. Not to talk about the financial aspect of it, but we need all these things. And she's taught me so much that I should be grateful to God for everything. And I will say that children with special needs are just like us, are also wonderfully and fearfully and wonderfully made by the God who also created us. And if you look at them, watch them with a positive eye, all the positives will show in them. Yes.
Great. I have to ask you, Debbie, just the final one. How has Toda, somebody is looking after her, she'll come back. How has Kofi changed your life, your lifestyle, and your career?
So Kofi, I had Kofi when I was already working with one international organization, and so the HR things were already in place. And when the diagnosis came in, I immediately confided in my supervisors that this is it. I naturally have, if I can say that, great work ethic. So if I need to do X, Y, Z, because I know that this is the child I have, I don't postpone it. Get to it, do it now, clear it out of the way. And I have friends who will tell me that, do you take rest at all?
Can you please help her come back? Thank you.
Do you take rest at all? Because sometimes as late as 11, 12, 1 a.m., things that I know I need to get out of the way, I immediately get it out of it, because when Kofi is awake, he needs my full attention. And so there's no need postponing things I can do when the time is there to do them. So Kofi has changed me in ways that I didn't know were possible. I learned to be patient with him. I was someone who, prior to having Kofi, I cared so much about what people thought of me, you know. And then suddenly you have this child that society has a whole opinion about, and he is your child. He is who you were given.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn to accept him, because no matter if I don't accept him, that is what society will model.
Yeah.
And so genuinely accepted my son and stayed committed. In terms of my career, I have always advocated for persons who are downtrodden, special needs, and it's like I see it and I'll have to say it. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
And then now I am in the position where really my voice could actually change his outcome. So I advocate everywhere I am loud.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for what you do. May God continue to give you grace. And Toda is beautiful. See? So thank you for taking care of her and loving her the way that you do.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can have plenty more conversations.
Sure.
So how do people reach out?
Again?
Yes, Toda Connect Foundation. And we are
And
on
Toda is spelled
TODOH.
okay. Toda Connect Foundation.
Foundation, yes. So you can reach on Toda Connect, todafoundation.org, or the number 0244 272 922. 0244 272 922. And then the WhatsApp line 0266 476161. Then Debbie's number.
Okay. Debbie's number?
0244 387846. 0244 387846. I also write at debbieskey.com, and that is where I share everyday thing.
Okay. All
with
right.
my son.
Well, thank you, ladies.
Yes.
And to Toda as well. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining this conversation. Let me introduce to you what we're bringing to you next on the AM show. The national amateur boxing team, the Black Bombers, have intensified preparations ahead of the 2020 or 2021 Olympics, which comes off in Tokyo later this year. Joy Sports editor Nat Atto watched them in training and has put together a comprehensive report detailing their preparedness for the tasks ahead. Enjoy.